Happy Saturday, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network, heard here live every Saturday. I'm Ashton, sitting here with Tony. Lane is not producing today. I'm taking up that role, but thank you for letting us get you ready for your sports speak. And what's going on, Tony?
Man, busy.
Busy. How about that Friday night football game last night on the Peak One Sports Network?
That was a great game, and anyone that missed that one missed a good one down to the wire.
Let's not spoil anything. If you want to know what happened, go over to a large comeback.
You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, we're not going to say who won,
up
but
to the end.
Up until,
you might be disappointed at the end, but that's for you to judge.
I think the game was pretty much over at about 50 seconds left. So go over there, click after this show, of course, go over there and click on the Friday Night Football, Saginaw Brewer, and you will not be disappointed. Make sure to like and subscribe on social media and on our YouTube channel. Definitely building on those subscribers. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in to our shows. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button so you know every time we go live or drop a new episode. This episode is brought to you, as always, by Betalytics. The NFL season is here. Don't bet with your gut. The Betalytics dashboards allow you to quickly identify the top-graded best bets and hottest trends. Betalytics uses AI machines to learn algorithms and create accurate game simulations, player prop projections, betting line evaluations, and best bet recommendations. Use promo code PEAK1 for 25% off when you sign up today. Go to Betalytics.com to start betting smarter. And later today, we'll have the prop bet for Saturday, a little free kickback. If you want to test Betalytics out.
All our network counterparts that are they're big hockey guys.
Yeah.
So you can also get your hockey lines on there.
Absolutely. I mean, now that hockey's going on, NBA's starting up, all your major sports, pro major sports, or 4 majors, you get on there. Baseball
playoffs coming up.
Yeah, what's left of that. We'll do the Sunday night football prop bet for free, just to give you a little taste of it, and then you sign up Peak One. Use
with technology, man.
One.
Why not incorporate technology into your sports betting?
See, I've gone on there and looked, and they'll tell you bet over, under, whatever. And even like the app I use is maybe slightly different. It depends where you bet. Like over unders might be a little bit off, but it's okay because they show you the projections as well. I know I actually betted the opposite. I don't remember which bet it was, but it was rushing yards for a particular player on Thursday Night Football. They said bet the over at like 36.5 or whatever. But the app I was using had them set at 38.5. So I went to the projections right there on the Betalytics dashboards, and it said they were projected to get 37 rushing yards. So I actually betted the under of what I was betting. So technically I used them, but you have to, look.
You have to know what you're.
Have to know what you're betting, apples for apples, because the numbers they had the over under. Because if you go to Vegas, I use a sleeper app. It's all going to be slightly different, depending on who you're using.
Have you been successful though yet?
I have, but I always put a couple, because I do parlays, and you're adding those parlays up. There's only so many that I use, and then a couple of times I bet it with my gut. I'm like, nah, that can't be right, and I screw myself over because
And it would have been right if you would have stuck with Betalytics.
On that one particular, a couple of them I've been screwed because, like Kirk Cousins didn't even rush. It was like the over under were 3 rushing yards. So I'm like, I'm going to take the over. He just needs one, Cousins, and he didn't have 1 rushing attempt. This was a couple weeks ago. So sometimes, I mean, you can't bet. Algorithms aren't going to tell you that Kirk Cousins isn't going to take 1 rush.
Yeah,
you look at his average.
He should take 1 rush.
Yeah. But overall, they've been, I'll bet Christian McCaffrey over on his receiving yards. I'm like, he's going to get more receiving yards than that. And it was like 35.5 or something like that, somewhere around there. And he just went under the under, and I'm like, well, that's what Betalytics said would happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, go use Betalytics. Just try them out and see. Just use them on your parlays.
Use our code to
you get 25% off. Yeah, absolutely, and get another kickback. You can save more. Sign up for an annual subscription.
Yeah.
But let's get talking to sports today. We'll start off with the NFL. Pretty interesting thing happening this weekend. I guess we're calling it the Toy Story game.
Before you said that, I thought you were gonna say it was the game between all the defeated teams, all the cripples left.
Which one?
I saw a TikTok this morning actually and it showed like 4 teams, and each of the teams are playing a game against each other, and none of them have won a game yet.
Oh, it'd be like your fantasy football, the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is the Falcons and Jaguars. They'll be the NFL's first fully animated football game. This technology, the state-of-the-art technology, it's using tracking devices by Edge Innovation Center makes this possible. I know NHL did this last year with Big City Greens, that cartoon. They had Big City Greens characters as the actual characters, and it was live. And I don't know if it's the exact same technology.
It seems like they've.
Big City Greens is a Nickelodeon show, so that's owned by Disney, I think. And
but if it is, they've definitely marketed this one heavier than they did that, because I wasn't aware of that one.
I heard. Well, it is NHL compared to the NFL, but I heard it like the day of on the radio. They were talking about it. This has been around. I promise you've heard about this. We're not breaking news to you. But yeah, we think it's on Disney Plus. We saw a commercial.
It is on Disney Plus. I'm on Disney Plus right now, and
ESPN
it's showing on there. I can add to my watch list.
We have the bundle Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus. So I guess if you don't and you just have ESPN Plus, you can watch it on there as well.
Yeah.
And
apparently, from the way they're advertising it, obviously this game's in London.
Early game. So
it's at 8:25 Central.
9:25, 9:30 Eastern Standards. The game's in London. But this game's going to take place. The setting will be Andy's room.
Yeah. It's like a rug. It's a football field rug in his room.
Well, Trevor Lawrence asked what character he was going to be, but from the drawings I saw, that it's going to be animated football players. So I don't think they're going to be like Trevor Lawrence's Woody, or I don't think there'd be enough toys.
It doesn't look that way. From what I've seen, it looks like they're going to be animated of animations of themselves.
Yeah.
You're going to have the animated commentators on the sideline.
Yeah, they're going to have their own commentators. I know Booger McFarlane's one of them.
And then I think that what I heard is that they're going to have some of the toys will make debuts within the game for maybe they're going to be the officials, something,
Coin
How
toss.
cool would that be? Yeah.
Woody and Buzz come out for the coin toss.
Yeah.
NFL officials must not be watching Friday Night Football.
I want to see the T-Rex give the touchdown sign.
See, if Roger Goodell was watching Friday Night Football, Ross Bates and Dan Boyer would have this call for Toy Story. But
these guys are so good, the NFL might try to scoop them up.
They had a late game last night, so I don't think they would fly all the way to London.
I'm sure they're not up now.
Or all the way to Andy's room, where that is. Yeah, it's a fun thing. I'm definitely going to tune in. I've seen a couple
when you're watching the Jaguars and the Falcons, this might be the most entertaining thing you're going to have.
Yeah, the Falcons look like they were something a couple times. Competing against the Packers with Desmond Ritter's your quarterback, and I thought the Jaguars are going to take a big step this year, but I don't know.
Not a big step.
But yeah, I've seen a couple of criticisms of this, like they're just trying to get kids to watch, and like, of course that's what they're trying to do. Why, like you think NFL is going to spend millions and millions of dollars to do this?
To watch, you break it down to 30-second clips on TikTok each play.
Yeah.
And they'll tune in to watch if it's in 30-second clips or reels.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee you my kids will be interested in this. But yeah, you think the NFL is going to spend millions and millions of dollars on this to and take viewership away from wherever this game, the normal game, is going to be on. Fox
Normally,
to just say, hey, this is for the kids. Like, I mean, obviously that's what this is, but it's still fun.
Normally, 8:25 a.m. That's not terrible, but on a Sunday, getting ready for church, I mean, I normally wouldn't make an effort to have to tune into this, to get up to make sure I'm seeing this with this matchup. This gives me a reason to at least want to get on and tune in and see what this is about. It makes sense
that they do it with London, because it's going to be the only game happening.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have, well, everybody has access to the game because it's a nationally televised game. You have to have Disney Plus or ESPN Plus or whatever to be able to watch it. But you're not going to have, the Cowboys play at the same time, so I might tune in. Like, you're either if you're going to watch NFL, which I don't care how bad the matchup is, I like watching it early like that. I like that. So you basically have a triple header before Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
There's no reason to just turn it on in the background. Like, you're going to have the game on anyways.
Yeah.
And I might as well just put this on because I'm not missing anything else anyways, no matter what the matchup is. And London matchups don't tend to be the greatest matchups anyways. It's always the Jaguars.
Which is sad that they're big games over there, and they sell out. I mean, you see in the stands filled with every team jersey and hat, like they go all out, right? It's not one of those things that, like, here would be odd to show up to a game wearing a uniform or a jersey of a team that's not playing.
Yeah.
Over there, it's not. It's all NFL fans come here.
It's like a soccer game too, in a sense that if you've ever been to a soccer game, they're always loud. They're always crazy. And of course, when a big play happens or they score a goal, they get louder. So when you're watching this, it's really surreal. You're just listening. It's like they're all being loud all the time. You're like, this isn't a time that you would expect even to hear a lot of crowd noise, but they're so excited about it. And I think it makes it's kind of like where the Super Bowl has, like, they're always, there's a buzz in the crowd, where whether it's they just don't understand what's happening or they're just excited because they don't get to watch a lot of American football games there or at their time because it's usually late.
To be there in the stadium.
I know they watch it, on TV, and it's pretty respectable times there. I mean, they're just a few hours ahead, so as of Sunday night or Monday night football is probably like 1 or 2 a.m. or midnight. Your normal noon games is like an afternoon game to them. As opposed to our friend Gary Jarjurin in Australia, they have Tuesday night game. It's called Tuesday night football. And it's always like Monday at 2 a.m., your normal Sunday games or whatever. And it's not even Tuesday night. It'd be like Tuesday morning football.
Yeah.
Because it's weird. I didn't know he shared a post. I'm like, what are these weird ass times? I'm like, oh, that's Australian time, and because they have the ESPN or whatever. So it's gonna be fun. I'm definitely gonna tune in to check it out. I don't know what to expect at all.
Are the Jaguars? It seems like the Jaguars are a team that have been over there and played in.
They always play
games. Is that?
I don't know.
Are they the home team? Are they giving up the home game for that?
I think they usually get the home game because they do it every year. I don't know if that's a sense like they haven't been relevant for recently where they get paid extra. I don't know all the details about that. I know people will speculate that's going to be the team that moves to London, which would be weird because it's the AFC South.
And how would that even work logistically?
I'll tell you logistically how it needs to happen. They need to expand 4 teams. Because they're talking about Germany, France, you expand how many ever teams, but you make their own division over there. 2 London teams, add Paris, Spain has been it, but they're all pretty close. And they're all going to play each other anyways. So when they come over here, they stay over here for a certain amount of time. Like they play over there, they're all 3 games, whatever. They go to the US, they stay there, they play whatever. And then they come back for the final games. Because that's how schedules typically work out anyways. You're starting off against your division, ending against your division. Mm-hmm. And then when teams come and play, just like each division plays another division.
So essentially you would just have 2 teams at a time coming to the States, basically.
So like the NFCs, for example, is playing an NFC.
At least all of them at least play each other once, then come.
Well, then they'll play each other again because they'll be the same division. But like for example, the NFC East, all those teams play an a division and AFC division each year to have like schedules. So you would assume if they just use the Cowboys as an example, Germany, Madrid, London, and Paris. Let's just say those are the 4 teams in that division. You would play 2 there and 2 away. So you would just go play your 2 while you're there. And I think you could do it where you never have a team travel there, come back, and then travel back. If you're going to go over there, you have 2 games. You're not ever going to play 3 or 4 teams over there unless you're in that division, but they make that their own division.
So then they can, like I'm saying, is they would all play their games.
Yeah, at least 2 teams over there. Then they could play back and forth, and then you have a team come. They stay there for a week.
Limit the travel.
And then you could even do like if they've been over there 2 weeks, that's when their bye week is, or something like that. I mean, I know some players, I guess, have complained.
I mean, that's such a huge expansion at that point. I mean, you add in even multiple bye weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we knew when, as soon as they said, when we moved to 18 games, they said, hey, 20 games is coming so quickly. Like, it's coming. They might just eliminate the preseason altogether. I don't know how that, but yeah, if you expand, you're going to have to, you're going to get in a situation where college football, where they just have 100 teams, and you can't put a schedule together to make it legitimate enough where you can get rid of the rankings to have a true champion like the NFL has, where you have each division, most of their schedule is playing like teams because that's part of a tiebreaker. You have an even schedule, same amount of teams, same amount of, or you can do the tiebreakers. College football, it just wouldn't work that way.
If you did have teams from overseas playing like you're saying with a division and then coming like they normally would, they would all play within, like they would face another division that season. That whole division faces this division this season. So geographically it could work because they, for the most part, would be in a location, on whether it be the East Coast, West Coast.
Even one team, if you think about it, there's not going to be a team that comes visits you twice. It never happens unless you're talking about playoffs.
What's the time difference from the East Coast to London?
The East Coast from London, I believe it's 4 hours.
So, I mean, it's not a lot different from going East Coast.
Yeah, that's one extra hour. I'm a nerd, so I have like all different. So London right now, it's 1:23 p.m. as opposed to 8:20. So it's a 5-hour difference from the East Coast. So it's 8:23 in New York, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Significant
5 hours.
for a 1 week, but like you said, if you had them,
you already have teams going over there playing.
Yeah,
now,
but for one game. But if you had them coming over and spending,
that
2 or 3 weeks here,
no team would go and play multiple games there in the same season, though.
Right.
You have the argument right now that Jacksonville, Atlanta, both teams are traveling and dealing with that. So there's not an advantage there because both teams are dealing with it as you would have.
It would be the same as going on a road trip. I mean, now in the States, you come back home for a while, short moment, and then you're back out. That you could go on a 2-week road trip, either to London or London to here.
You would have to say, though, like no Thursday night football games in London. The London team only plays Thursday night football games because they would never go back and forth.
Right.
You would play,
but they could play them if they were here on a 2 or 3 week stint.
Yeah, go back, play
night.
A couple. Yeah.
They could play Sunday, Thursday, or play something. They could work it out
because there's no way you'd make the schedule where we play London week 1, we play Los Angeles week 2, we play London week 3, we play New York week 4. Yeah,
come here for 3 weeks, play a Sunday, or maybe a Sunday you're off, and then Thursday, and then you go home.
Yeah, because typically, I mean, you would say, okay,
play a Thursday.
You start off
don't
the
play
season
this weekend. Play the following Sunday, then you go back.
You start off the season 3 or 4 games at home, or 3 or 4 games in the States.
You could have some Thursday night games in London between those divisional teams.
If you had more than one team, you could.
I think that's the way. You're right. That's the way it needs to be. Having one team doesn't make sense going back and forth. Having a division where games are just always played there, and then those divisional teams can come across and play here, or even say NFC East, you get a couple teams. They're going to go play there for 2 weeks and play a little round over there,
or go Madden's route. I like that. Madden changed stuff up just enough to say, hey, we changed stuff up, but you can when you relocate teams, you have a lot more cities. So Tokyo's in there. They always had London and Ireland or Dublin. Now you have Spain, Tokyo's in there, Melbourne, Australia. So yeah, I just put pure chaos. I have a team in Tokyo, in Australia, in London. Like, it doesn't make sense. You would never.
I can remember as a kid though, and it was really cool. I don't want to get too far off topic. We got a lot to talk about today, but watching the NFL Europe back in the day, and there were those odd times at night or more early morning that you would get to watch those. I mean, that was the Galaxy was a team. I love the Galaxy.
That was that is essentially like the minor leagues.
Mm-hmm.
That was the NFL's way of bringing football to Europe, and now we've stepped up and actually have games.
But you had each player on a team. It wouldn't be teams, and necessarily it's you have players all over all teams.
Yeah. Because I think they had like 8 teams, maybe something like that. But now you have games in Germany. I don't know if they had those last year. I know this year they have Germany. I don't know if it's the first year.
I think the NFL. I mean, you can see that they're making stretches with.
Next year they're going to have
this Toy Story stuff. Like, I think it's time for the NFL to expand into Europe, and maybe that's something we could talk about in future shows. But
because they have games in Brazil next year,
more detail into the logistics, but the money aspect and I'm sure these tests that they've been doing over the past few years of playing one game over there are showing them what type of money
at a time. Because usually they have about 3 games total, but each team plays. Yeah. And then, because I don't know, it seems like, hey, it's not a big deal, but then again, I don't know the logistics of it. It's what, a 12-hour flight? That's significant. And you're talking about, okay, we have to leave probably a day early. I think there are some real specifics you have to get into. Like that London team's not going to play in London and come and play in Dallas for Thanksgiving or something. But
again, if you do,
I think it's happening.
2 to 3 week stints. You have a facility that they can train and practice out of. That's something the NFL would need to look.
And maybe
into
those
as well.
weeks,
you have a central hub somewhere that this is for the teams that come. They can come into this one facility, whatever weeks they're here, and they have. And you can take
advantage of the bye weeks, especially if you had 2. That anytime they do transcontinental, that's either a bye week or they play noon on a Sunday in London, and their next game's not till Monday in the state. Like, you get that extra day, you get the extra few hours, and then you're already in the state, so you play a couple times, and then you play another early game on Sunday.
And maybe they're taking a midweek flight. They get
their rest day on Monday. At the same time, does that mean we get extra games? So the games in London, are they playing at 9:30 our time, noon there, or do they say screw it? Because normally, it doesn't matter where you're playing. It's games at noon, games at 3:25.
That's a
financial thing. This just popped into my head.
I'm sure for the NFL, they're thinking that as well.
Yeah, that just popped in my head. We could. I love it when they have those few weeks a game. Now, maybe it wouldn't be every week, but you would obviously have that, because if you expanded, sure, it'd be
you're going to have what's the start time of that game there? It's a noon start. Is Sunday's game?
No, it actually be it's 5 hours ahead. So 9:25 we said Eastern, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 2:25. So not far off like your afternoon game.
So they could play, so it makes sense doing that. They wouldn't want to have noon games there because it's too early here.
Because if you go to London, that's a major media. That's like New York media market. That's huge, and you have to accommodate to them a little bit. You can't say Sunday Night Football for us.
No,
and then their team plays on Sunday Night Football, and it's like midnight there when the game starts.
At 8:25, by 8:25 when that game's over, or for us, I'm saying 8:25, but at 8:25 when that game's over, the noon games are starting.
Yeah.
So you're starting from 8 a.m. until Sunday Night Football. We would have football literally all from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. You would have football all day long.
Yeah, with like a 30-minute break in between.
So that would absolutely help, and you would have 2 of those games going on over there at the same time. If you had those divisional teams, so that would be their 2 games they could play at the same time, or maybe you could break them up, I guess. But
I think we need to. I think we need to do
games.
I think we need to do a lot of research and have a show dedicated to the logistics of having, and then really look at what the chances are, what the NFL thinks about that. Like, obviously they're playing. They may say, yeah, we're going to move a team over here really just to get the ratings. But we'll get into that because, like you said, we have a ton to talk about. We'll say in the NFL, yesterday, the NFL unveiled new gambling policies. Under the new policy disclosed in a memo on Friday, they have more stricter rules, and then they've come down depending on the situation, which I think they need. I think they needed to make. It seems like it came out of nowhere last season with like we assumed it was an issue, but they just came out and said, here are the rules, and now they've kind of depending on the situation, dissecting it, depending on the situation, which I think is good, rather than just saying zero tolerance type situation. So a player who bets on his own team will be suspended at least 2 years, depending on the situation, maybe more. If he places a bet on any, where am I at? Players that place a bet on any NFL game will be at least 1 year suspension, depending on if it's not their own. Betting on non-NFL sports is what we saw last offseason. While at team facilities or related to team travel on their plane or bus or whatever.
See,
that'll be a 2-game violation first time, 6-game second, and 1 year for a third.
That one I don't like.
Because who cares?
Like if you're not betting, I think 100% they should not be able to bet on the NFL.
Yeah.
There's too much.
And they're even saying here in this rule that we're okay with you betting on other sports. Just don't do it in team facilities, which is kind of, I get it's a bad look if
they're spending so much time in team facilities on team planes. Like, if I'm on a team plane flying back, why can't I go through and place a couple bets?
Maybe
why can't I jump on my Betalytics app
I
can go on there?
You could, but
no. But what I'm saying, why can't
it doesn't always work out like that? Where I'm just privately doing my Betalytics app on my. It's guys having little bets, pools going, things like that. And
what's the problem?
I assume
with that,
it's a bad look though. Like, hey,
but you see these guys
a reporter
do it.
Sees them.
You see these
say
guys
they're gambling on stuff.
When Aaron Rodgers. When Cal was playing, I forget who it was.
I know, I agree. It shouldn't, but if they're betting on hockey games or college football or whatever in team facilities, what's a reporter to stop and say they're gambling on NFL games? It just doesn't. It's I guess I don't know. I think they're just trying to alleviate the problem. Like, just don't gamble while you're here, and we don't have to worry about investigating it and figuring out if it was an NFL game, if it was that. I don't know. But again, it seems like pretty simple. Just follow the rules. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like they're much more clear on what the rules are now.
And they have a indefinite lifetime ban for players fixing games. That has to do with basically like insider trading. Even if they're not actively involved in the bet, if I'm not going to say any names for an example, that's just. But if the quarterback knows this running back is going to be limited today, like that's an obvious reason why he can't bet on NFL games. But he tells his friend who has nothing to do with the team, like, hey man, Zeke's he's not going to start today. He's going to play a little bit, but I'd bet the under. This isn't publicly known. That's what insider trading is basically. Yeah. Is telling somebody something that the public doesn't know about yet.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the same thing is them. That's why a lot of NFL writers say you can't bet because you know stuff before it's made public. Once it's made public, usually Vegas knows a little bit before public because you'll see them change a point spread or something, and you're like, okay, I bet you the quarterback he's questionable and they just move the point spread. I bet you he's not playing. They usually know ahead of time, but if you know ahead of time, like, dude, Zeke's knees is just hurt. Like he might play, but no matter what, he's not going to come in 100%. We're going to, start a game plan where he's playing 50% of the snaps or whatever. I use Zeke. He's already playing 50%, I'm sure, but just in this example, and he knows, and you go tell your mom, you go tell somebody, hey, bet the under. He's not going to before that, Vegas catches up or the sleeper app or whoever catches up. That's typically, I mean, I guess that's what your best examples of insider trading on this. I guess it's the same way too, is somebody tells you, hey, I bet this, make sure somebody did, and then you.
Well, it's like what we saw with Alabama and the baseball program this past season, past spring, where information from a coach was passed on to someone he knew.
That was the coach 100% making a bet too.
Well, yes.
He was trying to be. He did the dumbest smart thing. Yeah. He had somebody else place the bet, but he made the call right before the guy placed the bet while the guy was there.
Yeah,
just incriminate. Like if you had the foresight to I'm not going to place the bet. You're going to place the bet. But yeah, it's basically insider trading.
Yeah.
One way or the other. And the last thing on the NFL, we got to talk about the Dolphins. They're 3-0. Their offense, it looks like there's no end in sight to how great this offense can be. They're on a historic pace, most yards ever to start a season, second most points through 3 games. They're average with 130 yards 130 points through 3 games.
Yeah.
Which over 40 points a game they're averaging, which when you score 70, that's going to, up your points anyways. But still, 40 points in the NFL is ridiculous. There aren't a lot of college teams that are averaging 40 points right now, outside of Georgia, maybe. And they're 8.4 yards per play through 3 games, which is
that's a stat that blows me away.
It's ridiculous to think about.
Almost averaging a first down every play.
Counting run plays, incomplete passes. Every play they run, they're averaging 8.4 yards.
Obviously, that, lack of a better term, ass whooping that they gave the Broncos.
It's an ass whooping. 50 point. That is the definition.
That's going to skew these numbers slightly, right? They didn't. It's not like they got up on them and backed off in the fourth quarter. They didn't let up at all till the final whistle blew.
Yeah.
So obviously the numbers are skewed, but I also don't want to take away from what the Dolphins are doing. I think they've actually figured this out. I think Mike McDaniels he's a dude. I mean, this guy, and he proved it when he was in San Francisco, as a coordinator. Like, this guy knows offenses, and he and Tua have figured something out. We're seeing Tua from Alabama. We're seeing the college Tua that we saw. We haven't seen that from him in the NFL yet until this season. Tyreek Hill's having a season. I mean, this entire team is just, this offense is looking really good.
They played the Chargers, who we thought was going to be a lot better there. Are they 1-2 now?
Yeah.
They beat Minnesota, yeah. That was a great game. They played the Patriots, which isn't a great defense or offense, and then the Broncos, of course. And interesting, like if you'd have told me
in the NFL, you have to play whoever you line up against. You got to play him and you got to beat him. That's it. It doesn't matter. Like, we can play this like we talked about with the Cowboys this past week. You got to beat whoever they line up in front of you. And if you don't do it, you don't. Like, that's how the NFL runs. And anyone can win any week. This isn't like college football where, these Power 5 conferences are playing these lower level Division I teams and just steadily giving it to them,
If you would, I don't know how far we have to go back to make it really surprising, but you tell me that Sean Payton's going to be the coach of a team and Russell Wilson's going to be the quarterback. I think probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you think, well, that team's a Super Bowl contender, not getting their asses whooped by 50 points, and now they're 0-3.
When Sean Payton was in New Orleans, and as a Cowboys fan, it was rumored that, he'll be the next coach. He's going to come here and be a coordinator. He's going to be. And how many times did we get excited about that, thinking, man, if he came here, he could do something with this team. And now I'm seeing it with Denver. Like, I'm not so sure that it wasn't the team he had more than it was his system in New Orleans.
He basically had free reign to be a GM, but when you have an all-time great quarterback, it kind of how we see that with Bill Belichick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had some success with the Browns early on, but he didn't do anything until he had Tom Brady.
Pete, this is really a credit to Pete Carroll because he really got something out of Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
He made Russell Wilson. Being so undersized and they were, the entire time that Russell Wilson was in Seattle, they were a team to be reckoned with. Of course, they had great defenses, and there were other things that went to that, but they were always a tough team to beat.
And then Peyton also saying in the offseason, just trashing the Broncos organization, last year's coaching staff. Like, that's not how you run an organization.
Which is now that's the offensive coordinator for the Jets now. Is that right? He was in that system.
What is it? I can't remember his name. Yeah. And then, I know Sean Payton really hasn't had a chance to do anything. The Broncos' financial situation is not great with Russell Wilson taking up most of the cap, but at the same time, Sean Payton went there. He chose that. And and he chose to open his mouth and say, "Hey, this was a bad coaching staff last year," and they look worse than ever.
Yeah,
like absolutely worse than ever. And I don't know that.
I mean, as a Broncos fan, you have to be upset with what you're seeing.
Yeah, you're going.
Because I would imagine, like you said, you tell me I have Russell Wilson at quarterback. Of course, we saw Russell Wilson at quarterback last year in Denver.
Even with Seattle, he struggled this last year.
But you tell me Sean Payton's going there, I tend to think, man, this could be a pretty good team. But maybe this is proving that these old dogs can't learn new tricks. These guys can't compete like we're talking about Mike McDaniels in that offense. You see all these young new coordinators in the NFL becoming head coaches. They're bringing something different to the table. The NFL is evolving on how the game's played, and these old guys, the Belichick's and stuff, like it's going to depend on how they adapt. You see it in college football as well with at Alabama with Nick Saban, that he's not adapting like these younger, newer coaches. Texas's coach, with Dion in Colorado, he's got that new flavor.
Well, look at the best teams in the NFL right now. 49ers, young coach. Eagles, young coach. Belichick, not doing so great.
Yeah.
Sean Payton, not doing so great. There's an element to it, and I think Mike McCarthy, for example, has taken a little bit up. But Mike McCarthy does have a really talented team. And to be fair, 49ers are a great roster. Eagles are a great roster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're.
But is that part of building a great roster, is having that?
And at the same point, can you put a coach on a team and them just be terrible? Look at the Cowboys. Like, yes, you went from the all-time worst defense, all-time franchise worst defense, and you did get Micah Parsons the next year. But you also added Dan Quinn. And they go from the worst in franchise history to one of the best, and they've had a 3-year run. You do have Micah Parsons, but outside of Micah Parsons,
they've drafted pretty well.
They have, but do they have a superstar on defense that wasn't there pre Dan Quinn? Like a superstar right now. Like you look at a few maybe, but then again, you put the wrong coach there. Like Micah Parsons is gonna be Micah Parsons regardless. But there's a lot of players that are mid-tier that if you don't put them in the right system, they can look terrible, they can look great. Taco Charlton's example. He looked terrible for the Cowboys. He looked better for the Dolphins. Now that's a bad example. That's not a mid-tier that looks great. That's a low tier or a mid-tier that looks low on the wrong defense.
Yeah.
And then he gets put in the right scheme and like, hey, he does a couple of things. The same thing, like the Broncos, like I think Russell Wilson's done. I think he's had a few too many injuries, and his body's just not all there. But you see, we thought the Jets were going to be really good. It's not just Aaron Rodgers. They put a lot of players around them, and they look terrible. They have a terrible quarterback with Zach Wilson. Doesn't look like he could do anything. But I think really Aaron Rodgers would have made that big of a difference in there. Because we're trying to say that this Jets is one of the better defenses.
That
but
team
they haven't played great.
Is built around their defense. I think that Aaron Rodgers is definitely a step up. I think that's a very young team, the Jets team is, and with a young offense, I think they needed that leadership that Zach Wilson doesn't bring to the team. I think that's what you're missing. So to say new school to old school, Zach Wilson's not mature enough to take on a young team like that. If he came into a team that was a veteran, established team, veteran receivers, a good veteran running back, a veteran offensive line, yeah, he might be able to figure it out. But
whereas
Aaron Rodgers was coming in more as the mental side of being able to get these guys, because they're very talented on offense. They just can't find a way to get the ball into their young star hands.
Even Tom Brady, he didn't look great his last year, but it was kind of just him that you thought something. He led them to the playoffs, and even the year before, he didn't put up. He did put up great stats, but
even his Super Bowl year there in Tampa, he didn't play great. He didn't play tremendous.
Having him there, that made the difference. Like with Dak Prescott in his rookie year, like maybe we overhyped Dak Prescott because he's put in a situation where they had an awesome offensive line that they were building to protect Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Tony Romo gets hurt the previous year, so you draft Zeke. You have premium Zeke, rookie year, one of the best. You say whatever you want about Zeke, but before this year, I think it was from 2016 to 2022, he still led the league in rushing.
Dak's also,
and he sucked the last 3 years
on a team that when you're the quarterback, you're in the national spotlight.
Yeah.
So,
but he's put up stats too.
But yeah, to look
but
at
he's
him
put
like,
in a great situation.
Yes,
he wasn't put on. He's not in Bryce Young's situation where he got put on a terrible team. He had weapons. He had a great offensive line. He had okay defense, a good enough defense, and he had Zeke. Most of the time, you're starting off. That's why that's a great situation to be. But you're starting off with scratch. Like, you're the worst team in the NFL. We're going to draft a quarterback, and the best quarterback coming into the draft may look a lot worse. Dak wins the Rookie of the Year. He deserves it.
Yeah,
but he was put in a better situation than
he had no pressure.
Carson Wentz was put in. Jared Goff was put in.
Everyone expected him to fail if he failed his rookie year. And there would have been no pressure. No one would have thought twice about it because he wasn't the guy.
Yeah.
But then when he becomes the guy, now no matter what, just like week 1 this year, they rout the Giants 40-0. But then the national media says, well, look at this offense couldn't do anything. The offense didn't have to do anything. The defense took care of it that game. Up until the last play this past week against the Cardinals, the offense looked fine.
Yeah.
They were moving the ball. Dak's doing what he has to do, but he's getting the criticism. Oh yeah, look, he threw that, and you see the meme. Okay, you had 3 defenders and that one receiver. Well, there was a hole that he broke the zone. He had an opening in the zone. It was just a tight window and Dak didn't hit it. That's his one. I'm not defending Dak at all.
Yeah.
He's made plenty of bad calls and bad mistakes in the past.
You put a target on you when you're,
but when you're
the quarterback of the most hated team.
Cowboys, yes.
Because Dak is one of the best leaders you've ever seen. He has talent. Like I say, he's a top 10 quarterback. Last year was just, I don't even know. He's not a turnover machine. He's just not that superstar that you can be put on. From game to game, he can take over a game, but you can't say he's gonna lead them to the Super Bowl, because that's just not, and that's what the first 2 weeks was the defense really leading that team. He just had to have an efficient offense, don't turn the ball over, and that's exactly what he did. And going back to his rookie year, he made some great plays.
Well, what are the differences you see from his rookie year to now, though? He doesn't run the ball. There's no design runs for him. He doesn't
have an offensive line.
You remember that was the knock he had, but he's a huge quarterback. Is he would roll out his rookie season, he would hold the ball to the last minute. He would be letting go of a ball, getting hit in the face, and make a play. But that was the knock is, well, he can't continue to do that his whole career. Dude, he's a big guy. I think he could take it. Now you don't see that. He's quick to get rid of the ball. He's not, to me, not quick enough to just tuck the ball and take off.
Yeah, and obviously they're still learning a brand new offense, and
that's true.
Things have changed as well. He just doesn't have the offensive line he used to have. Definitely doesn't have the running back power.
I
think Pollard's better than Zeke now, but Pollard's nothing to what Zeke was his rookie year.
This week, if they were playing San Fran, you would have had 3 of your offensive linemen sitting?
No, I think Tyron Smith starts that. Like, he was in uniform. They thought he could. And I think Tyron Smith sits out this week too against New England, which again they should win. But obviously after last week you can't put it. But they're playing San Francisco next week. And I think when they play San Francisco, it's going to be a close game. I don't know who wins.
Yeah,
that's going to be a tough game. But I don't think San Francisco blows them out.
But I don't think that you have the players sitting if you weren't playing the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, oh, well, the Cardinals came out and embarrassed you. Dude, I mean, you weren't playing.
3 offensive line. Like
that's
the Cowboys put up they laid an egg. They did terrible.
Yeah.
They usually do. I mean, they'll do that from time to time. But you have to put in the fact that they're going to have a close game against San Francisco. They have to, because they were probably looking forward 2 weeks to that San Francisco game anyways.
Yeah.
You don't have 3 offensive linemen. That has to stay for something.
Yeah.
And there were even people calling it before the game. The Cardinals are going to be a tough test because they're running the running game, and the Cowboys, that's their Achilles heel on defense, is their run defense.
Yeah.
And you saw it. Like, it didn't matter what quarter you put a running quarterback up there, they're going to take advantage of it. And this defense just got blown out. And then you throw it back on Dak, and they just could. And they started off slow. And at some point, when you just let them, I mean, the Cardinals led the whole game, but you let them hang around, you stay close. That's when you get it. Because if you're not going to get that momentum early, it's going to stay. Whatever it is, mental momentum, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, the issue is. when you get in the fourth quarter, you're not just going to flip that switch. You can't at halftime. We thought they did. We thought they did pretty good right after halftime. But you're just not going to flip that switch. And I would have thought if they would scored a touchdown on that last drive instead of interception, I thought, well, that's it. It's a one possession game. I think the Cowboys, even though their defense hadn't been able to stop them pretty much the whole game, it's like I think the defense goes out and stops them.
Yeah.
But that's just what happens.
I think you're right that they're taking advantage of the next 2 weeks or last week and this week, and they're looking ahead in the season, and they didn't game plan well enough to how they can stop the run.
Yeah,
because they knew that was it. I mean, how can anyone, you and I say it, the national media says it, you know that the Cardinals are about to come and run it down your throat and see what happens.
And
again, they have nothing to lose. It's been rumored that their ownership, and management's wanting to tank. Like, you knew that they were just going to, we can run the ball. We're just going to run the ball and see what happens. And if we lose, oh, well, no big deal.
You have issues in that stadium as well. Cowboys just don't do good when they travel to Arizona. They don't beat Arizona very often. It's just one of those weird things. And Arizona had the Eagles' offensive coordinator as their head coach now. Either way, you have that in division rival where it's when you're familiar with the teams. Yeah, that's something that just being on the Eagles coaching staff last year does have something where you're not thinking about it, but they're thinking, but like, hey, we're going to take this team down.
Yeah.
And again, you're the Cowboys. Let's just jump into college football before we jump into the thread. A couple of matchups today. You have Notre Dame at Duke. Number 11 Notre Dame, number 17 Duke. Duke's first time starting 4-0 since 1994, and College Game Day is at Duke, the first time ever.
That's
for football.
That's great.
Yeah.
For me. I mean, that's what we want to see. College football's evolved so much, and I'm one that loves I'm a huge SEC guy, but I'm really glad to see that you don't have this dominance so much of those teams, and these other teams are getting in, the Colorados and the Dukes, and you're starting to see
especially in the ACC, because
fresh blood.
North Carolina and Duke, traditional basketball schools are doing good. Clemson is having an off year. I mean, I even picked them to be in the Final Four, and I'm eating crow now because they lost 2 games. They lost to this Duke team.
Yeah.
And then Notre Dame, it's gonna be a tough game for Notre Dame because they come off this high,
huge emotional
game against Ohio State, losing pretty much. Was it the last play of the game or almost the last play of the game? Where I thought they were gonna win, and they lose, and now they're back with the national spotlight again because College Game Day was in Notre Dame. It was in South Bend last week.
Yeah.
And now they're playing an underdog, and it's hard to get hyped up for this game, not only after a huge emotional loss, but you go against Ohio State to Duke. Duke's doing great this year.
This should be a really good matchup. In most cases, you expect Notre Dame, but you're right. Coming off of last week, that was so emotionally draining to these guys in such a game like, you're just trying to recover just to get back to Saturday.
It's going to be a slow start for Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a close game early. I think Notre Dame wins by a couple of scores.
But I'm not going to be surprised if Duke pulls this one out either.
No, not
Duke could be for real. I don't want to call it so early because they really haven't played a team that
Clemson's their biggest win, and then you look at Clemson. Of course, that second loss could be different because they lost to Duke as well. But you're looking at a situation like, well, is Clemson what you thought it was? Duke gets propelled because they beat Clemson, and you're like, well, Clemson's not even ranked now.
Yeah.
So you do have to look at that. Notre Dame, the same thing. You think they're real. You always think they're back. They just competed against Ohio State, nearly beat them.
Duke's going to have a tough road ahead of them even after this week. I mean,
ACC's not easy.
You've got North Carolina State. What I guess next weekend they'll be off. They'll have a bye week.
Yeah.
Then they come in North Carolina State. Then they have Florida State after that.
Then they'll play North Carolina probably the last game
Louisville,
of the year.
Wake Forest, and then you play UNC November 11th. Then Virginia and Pitt to end the season.
It's going to be
they've got a tough road ahead of them still. But they look really.
I mean,
good.
we're not talking national championship or anything, but I think they have a chance to make it great. Maybe if they can manage to win most of these games and maybe lose 1 or 2 games, they could win, or they could go to a Cotton Bowl or something. If Cotton Bowl may be a semifinal this year, I don't know, but they could do one of those New Year's Six bowls that aren't in the playoff. I think they have an opportunity, especially if you can beat North Carolina, because North Carolina is a good team.
It's so weird to me to say Duke in college football.
Yeah. Well, Duke is undefeated. Kansas, although Kansas had a good year last year. North Carolina's been great the last few years with Mac Brown as their head coach.
Yeah, North Carolina's ranked 15.
Yeah, North Carolina. I mean, you may be in a situation if Duke can pull this out. You have two potentially top 10 teams if North Carolina and Duke can. Can you imagine Duke, North Carolina, two top 10 teams, not basketball?
Yeah, that blows me away.
LSU, Ole Miss. That's 13 versus a 20. LSU's kind of been disappointing this year. I expected them to have national championship aspirations. I thought they had that shot. I was thinking their big question mark would be how they play, because I think they go to Alabama this year. But that might be a very, very underwhelming game. Now you look at Alabama too, but that's a good game. USC and Colorado. Colorado's not ranked anymore after the blowout loss to Oregon. Colorado, is it in Los Angeles or is it in Boulder? I don't have it written down here.
No.
But number 8 USC, it's a definite challenge. If Colorado gets blown out this week, I think you're just like, well, hey, they had a good run there.
This is
Let's look next year.
What you
deal.
expected. I mean, I figured that they coming into the season that they could be a 500 team.
Yeah.
Colorado could. I mean, that's a tough Pac-12 to play in with. I mean, several. I mean, they have actually the most ranked teams.
Yeah,
in the top 25
for a conference that's not going to be back next year. That's going away. They're probably the best football conference right now.
So that it's not surprising that they got their ass whipped by Oregon, but
we'll see how they respond now. Back-to-back weeks.
This is going to be what it is if they can at least make it a competitive game.
Yeah.
I mean, do you even know what the spread of the game is now? What?
I didn't have it, but I can look it up if you want to keep talking about the Dion effect, because we are talking about Colorado for the 4th straight week on this show.
And this is not like we aren't getting like just bought up into the hype just because everyone else is.
22
points.
Dang,
man, that's a lot.
What was it against Colorado? 21. So I'm surprised it's only 22. Because Colorado isn't quite. I mean, Colorado does have a better high.
I was thinking more of like a 14-point spread. I think that they lose by 2 touchdowns, but I think that they come back hopefully more competitive. I mean, I feel like they can come back more competitive.
And you're
USC's defense isn't what Oregon's defense was.
You and your before last week we're talking about maybe potentially the 2 best quarterbacks in college football, Caleb Williams and then Shedeur Sanders.
Shedeur last week was disappointing to see that he doesn't have an offensive line to protect him, and against that Oregon front, like, I mean, he had no chance.
USC is going to be coming after him. Yeah, for sure. So I hope that's a competitive game. Again, I should have looked at what time that was. I assume that's a later game, because they're going to schedule that game before. I mean, they're not going to make that an earlier game because of what happened last week. So I assume that's a primetime game, being in the West. It looks like you're looking that up.
It's 11
o'clock
our time.
Or 11 a.m.
a.m.
Oh, okay.
Today, so
noon kickoff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. I can watch that at some point. I gotta take the mother-in-law to get a new car because they don't want to drive too far away. But that's what I can see. And then Kansas and Texas, another traditional basketball school. Kansas undefeated. I think they started 4-0 last year as well. Number 24 against number 3 Texas. I think this is going to be a good test for Texas, because Texas, when you say, are they back? They typically do okay against good schools. It's those mid-range schools that that you're like, you should win, but let's look at it. Like yes, they've had some upsets recently, Iowa State beating them in Austin and things like that. But last year they competed against Alabama.
Yeah.
Yes, they lost Quinn Ewers for most of the season, but they had these weird games where they were losing to teams they should beat. Yeah. I think this is one you would worry about. Even though they started slow against Wyoming, they took care of Baylor. I didn't worry about those teams. Of course, you're going to worry about Alabama, but I think this is you're going to see. Are they going to play a close game? Are they going to take care of business? Are they really the 3rd-ranked team? Because you see the same thing we were talking about Duke. Is Texas is thrust in this top 3 spot because they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That's something to say about that. But is Alabama, you see Alabama come back. Again, it's after a heartbreaking loss.
Yeah.
struggle against South Florida, but they come out and win the game. So we'll see, because we don't know exactly what Alabama is.
Yeah.
And then just in time, we're going to go through these threads real quick. Miami, the University of Miami, is debuting these next week. They're off this week, so October 7th. These are the uniforms they're going to be debuting. They call them their Miami Knights. All black, green numbers there. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, you go Google Miami Knights uniforms. If you're listening to our podcast platform. But, I mean, these look pretty cool. I like how the helmets have the U is black, but they have the outline of the orange and green. And
it's all in reflective material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
we actually talked about this before the show, in our pre-show notes.
Yeah.
You know, Apogee Grafix did a design like this for a local high school team like a dozen years ago. So this isn't new technology to do this.
Yeah.
But I bet it becomes very popular after this.
Yeah, it's a newer thing. I think Oregon seems like they have some reflective stuff. Maybe not reflective. Maybe it's more like shiny. I don't know if it's just the different.
You can see on these uniforms, I mean, the reflective numbers, the names. One thing that I noticed this morning and we talked about on the sleeves, and you don't really see it in any of these images, but when you do see them, the sleeves have like this black pattern on it, and it's like lined, but it also shows a silhouette of a palm tree blowing, like in a hurricane, like bending over, and that's something you wouldn't see until the lights hit it and it glows, and then you can really see it. So that's kind of a cool detail.
I wonder if they'll do something with the lights before the game, or you know how they can, when teams score touchdowns, the lights flicker and do all kinds. If they do something where it insinuates some of these reflective patterns,
I think it's gonna glow. I mean, from past experiences and seeing this, you know, under the lights at night, without the daylight, I mean, it really does make those numbers and logos and stuff pop when that light hits it just right.
I do want to thank Miami for making a uniform that didn't include pink and blue neon like everyone seems to do. From the Dolphins having something like that, alternates to the Miami Heat.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a good change of pace. You see Miami in the ice, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's pink and blue.
What could it be? Yeah.
It's no, I like these uniforms. I think they're really cool. I think Miami's kind of making a comeback with their uniforms. As like Oregon's kind of the uniform king right now. That was Miami back in the early 2000s. Switching between the green and orange and white and different like basically those three colors in helmets, pants, and jerseys, and just alternating. I know Oregon's gone crazy with their uniforms, but I like it like this, where you have teams that haven't recently, typically changed uniforms. Like Oregon, they have a new uniform. It's like, okay,
yeah,
they probably wear a different one every game.
Yeah,
but this one's just like they're unveiling these and say, hey, in a couple of weeks we're gonna wear these, and I like it's completely different. Again, they take the Miami.
Cutting it close on time. Do you want to talk about MLB?
Yeah, we need to talk about that. I know I promised
left.
last week we'd talk about it because 2 days left. Today and tomorrow is it.
So currently, I mean, I can go down the list here. We got Braves have already clinched the NL East. Dodgers have clinched the NL West. The Twins clinched the AL Central. Orioles clinched the AL East. Rays clinched the AL
wild card
playoff spot. Yeah. The Brewers clinched the NL Central, and the Phillies have clinched an NL wildcard spot.
So the AL West is pretty much the only one
that's up for grabs still. Which you have the Rangers, their magic number is 1. They just won game. It's all in their hands.
And they're in at least
and they make a playoff spot. If they get 2 wins, their magic number's 2, so that would win them the AL West.
Yeah.
So that's either them winning their next 2 games today and tomorrow, or them winning 1 and the Astros losing 1. The Mariners still in the hunt with a three-way tie.
A three-way tie. Well, the Rangers and Seattle play, so they don't have to worry about all these weird things happening. They just need to win 2 games, and Astros lose 1 and win 1. If Astros lose both, Seattle's out of it.
Seattle's out. Yeah,
it is interesting. It eliminates both. Seattle can only win if they have the 3-way tie. because they have the
tiebreaker over the Rangers.
over
No,
Houston.
over Houston, and the Rangers have it over the Mariners.
But Seattle can't pass the Rangers. Rangers are up 2 games. If they win, they'll be tied. They need the Astros to go in there, and whatever tiebreaker is making this decision, it's if all 3 tie, the Rangers are the odd man out. And I think if Toronto wins one more game and the Rangers lose out, the Rangers are completely out of the playoffs. The Rangers can still lose out and make the playoffs if Toronto loses out. I can't remember if I think Toronto won last night, so Toronto still needs to win one more game if the Rangers win one more game. So pretty much
basically the Rangers have to win to solidify.
It's funny, out of these 4 teams, the Rangers are in the best spot standings wise, but they're the easiest ones to get screwed if it transpires. They just need to win a game. So basically, the AL West, it's either Rangers, most likely the Rangers, or the Astros. Would be unlikely for Mariners, but they still have a chance. And then the wild card's really between Astros, Blue Jays, and Mariners, unless the Astros can overtake the Rangers. But yeah, in that scenario, I think because the Rangers have to lose 2 games for Seattle to win. If the Mariners can win the AL West, I think the Rangers just miss out in the playoffs because you're relying on Toronto to lose 2 games. That's pretty much. I know there's other things that could happen. The Marlins can still make the playoffs.
The Marlins can. Sorry.
And that's exciting that we're down to 2 games. 162 games the last 2, and there's a lot of teams
over the Diamondbacks, Cubs, and Reds. But the Diamondbacks own the tiebreaker over the Cubs, and the Reds on the tiebreaker over Cubs and Diamondbacks.
This is so much more fun talk when we're talking tiebreakers in college football. I remember doing a podcast when it was Texas Tech, Texas, and Oklahoma to the Big 12, and all 3 of those teams could make the national championship in the BCS era, and it is fun. And now we're talking tie. I wish I understood the tiebreakers in baseball a little more because this is the first year they're doing this type of schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all these tiebreakers are really going to make a difference
because you don't do a tiebreaker. You know how you'd play that 163rd game. They don't do that anymore because you play odd number of games against your division, so you have the head-to-head already, and then you just have different – it's 162 games, that's it, and then there's a tiebreaker.
And then you have all this mathematics that go into it to decide who's in and who's out.
I'm waiting for whatever the – I know because in the NFL it can get down to points scored or something like that.
It's wild how the first year of doing this, you have so many opportunities and so many situations where the tiebreakers are going to mean so much.
I think the Twins basically have clinched the 3 seed, so they don't get a bye week because they're back 3 games of
yes, the Twins have the 3 seed, and then
the Orioles have the 1 seed.
Yes,
and so they get a bye week. So the winner of the AL West is going to have a bye week.
Yeah.
And then the Twins are going to play whoever the lowest ranked, the second wild card team basically. Braves have the first spot clinched. Dodgers, do they have the second? Yeah, because they have way more wins. Yeah, they have like 10 more wins than Milwaukee. So that's pretty much set up. It's the 1 seed's the Braves, 2 seeds the Dodgers, 3 seeds the Brewers, and then you're just trying to figure out what are there 5 teams?
4, 5, and 6.
How many teams can win the wild card in the West? Or get 2 spots. There's 2 spots left.
Marlins and Diamondbacks. The 5.
They're the only. Okay, so they're competing for 1 because Phillies have already clinched.
Yes.
So the Marlins and Diamondbacks are competing for the final spot. And then pretty much it's the Rangers, Astros, Mariners, and Blue Jays competing
we need to go back
a division spot. And
the post at the beginning when the season started, you made a post and there were a lot of comments, and I forget now even what the projections were of what we thought the Rangers.
You said 90. I said 80, 85, I think. I thought 85 and they missed the playoffs. Right now they're at 88 or 89. They're at 89. I think you said 90. So pretty close there. And then, I mean, they should win. But they could win 89 and not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. So it's probably going to take 90 games to win the AL West. Although 88 or 89 could do it.
91 games to guarantee it.
Yeah, to guarantee. Well, of course to guarantee it, but of course 89 could do it if you lose out. If the Rangers lose the last 2 and the Astros lose the last 2, you get it because you're up by 1 game.
Yeah.
But I don't think you want to rely on that. It's never good to rely on it. You have your destiny.
If you're the
in your
Rangers, you're
hands,
absolutely
just win.
You absolutely have to go out and win these next two. That just make it simple and easy.
Because I know their pitching staff is just gutted right now. But you get that bye week, so you're off. Or that bye round, I guess, is probably about a week. If you can win the AL West, because you get that wild card, you're just going back. Probably get a couple-day break, and you'd be more than likely the first wild card spot. You could be the second. So you might have to turn around and play this Astros team.
Yeah.
If the Astros win it, like I doubt the Mariners are going to win it. So it's either you get a bye week or bye round, or you're playing the Astros or going to play the Twins, which is probably better, but they've struggled against the Twins this year.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we are out of time. Thank you for sticking it with us and tuning in for this episode of the Leadoff. You can hear us right here on the Peak One Sports Network, live every Saturday. Follow us, subscribe, follow whatever social media platform you're on. We're on all of them at Peak One Sports. Subscribe to our YouTube page and continue to support us and watch all of our shows. But guys, until next time, talk to you later.
See you.